All right, shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to start this lesson by giving all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us all this truth and who also rule and teach well. And shalom to Allah Achim in this truth and sincerity, starting with the 144,000 and the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, which we are fighting to be a part of. This is your brother Khabar Yakal coming back, Lord willing, with another quick and edifying lesson. This should be a real quick one. I'm just do this article, as you can see, Department of Justice looking at denaturalization for American citizens convicted of certain crimes. All right, and I'm gonna look that word denaturalization up too. It says deprive someone of citizenship of a country. So basically, they can deport people who were, born in America. So, and like bros have been saying, for weeks now, probably months now, it's starting with the Northern Kingdom, of the nation of Israel, which, by the way, the nation of Israel, the true biblical Israelites are you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And it's like, they're starting, with the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Hispanic tribes. Hell, even they even said something about deporting Native Americans, as crazy as that is, as unjust as that is, which ultimately is judgment from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, on one hand, but on the other hand, if you so-called Hispanics, natives, if you understood the truth, really you'd be happy to be deported because that America's gonna be destroyed. You'll be happy. Really that's a blessing. Excuse me. Nevertheless, you so-called blacks, hey, you're gonna have to worry about being deported too, pretty soon. It's not just gonna be the Hispanics, all right? We're the 12 tribes of Israel. We're all the same people. As a matter of fact, I'll start with this one. Yeah, the scripture just popped into my mind. This is Jeremiah 50:33. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, which the name of the Lord, who the world ignorantly calls God, his true name is Yahweh in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, which means he is or he exists. And his son's name is Yahweh Shai, which means he saves or he delivers, and that's who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, because that's not his true name. All right. And it says, thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai of hosts, which means the Lord of armies. A host is an army. The children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go." All right. So the children of Judah represents, the so-called, the black tribes, so-called, the dark-skinned tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which would be the so-called American blacks, or the so-called Negroes. Benjamin would be the West Indians, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, all those Virgin Islands. That's the tribe of Benjamin. And the tribe of Levi would be the so-called Haitians. So that's the children of Judah, and then it says the children of Israel. That's the so-called Hispanic tribes, from Ephraim all the way on down to Issachar, Ephraim being the so-called Puerto Ricans, Manasseh being the so-called Cubans, Zebulon being the so-called Panamanians, Guatemala to Panama, Asher being the so-called Colombians to Uruguay. What else we got? Zebulon being, did I already say Zebulon? Yeah, I already did. Neftali being the Argentinian to Chileans, you know, Issachar being the so-called Mexicans, Gad being the North American Indians, you know, and so on and so forth. But we were oppressed together. When you look back in the history of America, it wasn't just so-called Negroes being lynched. You know, it wasn't just so-called Negroes that had chains and yokes of iron placed upon their necks. You know, the things they put on the slaves' necks to where they can't run away. You know, it's like they put a yoke of iron and it had a whole bunch of long barbs to where if they ran in the woods, they would get, pretty much they would break their own neck if they ran into a tree. But that was so-called Hispanics and natives. They went through that too. They went on slave ships too. Guess what? The first slave ships actually took the natives, you know, over here in America, so-called, which really they're really native to the land of Israel. All right, they came over here during, you know, the Assyrian captivity, and that's recorded in 2nd Ezra 13. But they went on slave ships first. They got taken over there to Europe, you know, to Spain. You know, there's a lot of Northern Kingdom over there in Europe today. Okay, even Elder Apostle Tahar said that a lot of Spaniards today are really Jakes. You know, Jake really took over Spain, and Jake originally ruled all those European countries anyway. You know, but not to get too off track, but it says all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Which who took us captives? The Edomites, the so-called white race. You know, which not all so-called white people are Edomites, by the way. You even have, you know, Israelites that look like, you know, so-called white people. All right, it's a lot of tribes of so-called white-looking people that are really Israelites. You got the Irish, the Italians. Like I said, a lot of Spaniards are really Jakes. All right. Hell, not to get too off topic, but I knew a Jake at my job, who he was Mexican, you know, and he looked like an Issachar. I didn't think nothing else, and he came to me and said, somehow it led to. He said he goes back to the Spaniards. But if you look at him, you really can't tell, you know. And the way he acted like a straight up Jake. But he went back to the Spaniards by his own words, you know. But he acted and looked like a Jake. So our people are scattered, all right. But we were oppressed together. So that's the wrong thing. JB watching anime, Salakia. Go back to this. It says, the Department of Justice is prioritizing revoking citizenship from some naturalized Americans who commit certain crimes, according to Department of Justice memo. And basically, they're the ones who determine what's a crime and what's not. So eventually, you know, this is going to lead to the persecution, all right? And, you know, just like in you know, hey, this is Rome all over again, right? You know, the Israelites, the early Christians, so to speak, which the true Christians are the Israelites, the followers of Yahweh Shai. You know, the Mashiachim. You know, Mashiach is how you say Christ in ancient Paleo Hebrew, which means anointed. You know, so the Mashiachim, the true Christians, were the Israelites. But who persecuted them? The Edomites. Nero. You had Nero Caesar. He was known for persecuting them. He burned down. He burned something down. He burned a city down in Rome. He burned down the whole city and blamed it on the Christians, you know. Again, the Israelites, us. If we're of the elect, you know, we were those same Christians back in the past. You know, we were thrown into coliseums. We got ripped apart by tigers and lions. So that persecution is coming again, that demonization, and we already see it. It's thousands of people on TikTok talking smack about the Israelites. Thousands of different people from different nations, mainly our people, which is a shame. But hey, the Lord's going to destroy 2/3 of our people, and rightfully so. But this is all leading to persecution, man. All right. I think it was either the last camp. It was one of the recent camps. You know, one of the elders said, you know, you might end up getting deported to, I forget what he said. He said Guantanamo Bay. I think that's what he said. And you might have to, teach the word to the Israelites that are locked up in there, you know? Which, Lord forbid, we get locked up, but hey, it's the Lord's movie. All right, just like John the Revelator got sent to a prison sentence in the Isle of Patmos, but he still did the work. All right, it wasn't, the work wasn't over. Now of course it's gonna be a famine of the word. Let me get that real quick, because that persecution goes hand in hand with the famine of the word. How are we gonna still be teaching on the streets when anyone who's calling on the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is going to be a target, is going to be locked up? How are we still going to be teaching when they're going to be coming after us? It goes hand in hand with the famine of the word. This is Amos chapter 8 and verse 11. It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, power, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord." And the only way to hear the words of the Lord right now is through the prophets. Well, it's always been through the prophets, but in these times, by way of these videos, these lessons, these electronic epistles, so to speak, that's how you hear the word. But it's going to come a time we're not going to be able to teach like we are right now. We're not going to be able to go on the highways and byways. All right, that persecution, all right? And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. So in that day, that's why a man, as it is written, is going to be more precious than fine gold. Because to stumble across a prophet in that day, you hit the jackpot, because we got the answers. Isaiah 33 and 6, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of our times. It says, in that day shall the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst. They're going to be thirsting after the living waters. But because they didn't take advantage of the scripture speaks about how our people, they misuse the prophets. Instead of taking advantage and taking heed and listening to the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, which we're speaking, they chose to mock us. They chose to make fun of us. They chose to ignore us, to talk shit, all right? Which they're supposed to do that. The scripture, it says in Psalms, all they that see me laugh me to scorn. They're doing what they're supposed to do, If you're ever out in public and it's just a group of random ass people just laughing at you, looking at you, the first thought in your head should be, well, they're doing what they're supposed to do, They're a necessary evil. The prophets are supposed to be laughed at and mocked. It comes with the territory. So going back, in the memo dated June 11th, Assistant Attorney General Brett Shumite is giving U.S. attorneys wide discretion to decide whether to pursue the denaturalization process to advance the administration's policy objective as Trump administration pursues its ongoing immigration crackdown. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to intensify. While attorneys are urged to prioritize cases involving individuals who pose a potential danger to national security. And who do you think is going to, be at the top of that list in the times that we're coming into? The Israelites. Hell, we were already, listed on the Southern Poverty, whatever the hell that shit's called. Southern Poverty Law Center, I think it's called. Where they categorize all the so-called hate groups. They got white power, all that shit, but they got the Israelites on there too. And they call them they label it Black Hebrew Israelites, which, hey, I'm not black. If you saw me, I'm extremely light-skinned. All right. Hell, I've been called white boy, in my life, even though I don't look like I'm white, but still, we're not black. But they're gonna use that to demonize us, all right? They're trying to make it like it's a Black Panther movement. No, this is an Israelite movement. This is a biblical movement. This is a movement from the heavens, all right? From the Most High God, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. Says more, in a new tactic, ICE is arresting migrants at immigration courts eternally say. Ain't good for them. All right. The average person, gets all mad, bent out of shape, and emotional. Man, F that, bro. Good for them. Deport them, yeah. Because like I said, really, that's a good thing. America's about to be destroyed, you know? And some of those, hey, there's some Northern Kingdom that I run into. I hope they don't get deported. I want them to stay here in Babylon. Hey, some of them that did get deported, I hope an angel teleports them back when the missiles fall. Lord willing, you know? A lot of Northern Kingdom, well, I ain't even going to call them Northern Kingdom. A lot of Hispanics have offended, men of the Lord. So, hey, good for them. May more happen. May more evil come upon them. Maybe then they'll wake up. Maybe then they'll try to turn back to the Lord. All right? I'm not going to shed no tears. Hey, it says in Jeremiah, pray not for this people. Oh, the goddamn devil. They're deporting our people. Like, no, I'm not going to react that way. The way I'm going to react is good for them. And good for Esau. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's the devil. I'm not about to shed no tears, get emotional like a female. Nah, hey, good for them. It says some of the cases U.S. attorneys should have pursued are those against individuals who have engaged in torture, war crimes, human trafficking, and human rights violations. The memo says, while the denaturalization process and requirements are codified into law, immigration attorneys Rosanna something says the memo changes how aggressively the Department of Justice plans to pursue these cases. It's going to get aggressive, man. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get 2 more scriptures. All right, and I'm going to close out because this is Revelation 12 and 12. It says, therefore rejoice ye heavens and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, which woe means destruction. For the devil is come down unto you. The devil is Esau Edom. The word devil comes from the Greek word diablos, which means slanderer or deceiver. And that's what Trump has been known for that. He has a track record of slandering and deceiving, For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Great wrath. Not little wrath, not like, a little inconvenience where you suck your teeth in. No, great wrath. I'm talking about you want to shed the blood of millions. That's the level of wrath we're talking about. We're not talking about a little sucking your teeth. That's some low level. This devil is coming down with great wrath. I'm gonna end off with this. Psalm 17 and 13. 13, it says, arise, O Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah. Matter of fact, I'm going to start at 11, because this goes into what this devil's doing with this immigration thing, deportation and denaturalization. This goes into it. It says, they have now compassed us in our steps. They have set their eyes bowing down to the earth, like as a lion that is greedy of his prey. And as it were a young lion lurking in secret places. This devil, ICE is just waiting in the cut. ICE is just waiting for Jake to slip up. And Jake is actually fighting back. This is stories of Jake, Northern Kingdom, so-called Hispanics actually fighting back. And it's only going to intensify. Race wars, race riots. That's all written. Matthew 24, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. All right. The nation aspect is going into the race wars, because the word race goes back to the word raza, which means nation. All right. America isn't a nation. It's a kingdom. It says, here's the point. And this is for us. This isn't for the 2/3. Arise, O Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. That's how you know it's for us. We're the only ones who know the true names of the Lord. So this scripture right here is for us. It says, disappoint this damn devil. Cast him down, which Yahweh Shai is coming back to do. Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. So Yahweh Bashem Yahweh is going to deliver us from this devil. He's not going to allow him to win, to get the victory over us, But he will allow him to get the victory over you niggas in the world. And the wicked, which is thy sword, that's Esau Edom, his blessing was the sword. All right? So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. Once again, giving all praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Al Shai, Bashem,